Ahimsa paramo dharma. The prime dharma is ahimsa. For protection of dharma and ahimsa, if we have to do hinsa, that is also ahimsa. Fake narrative. I don't believe in this concept called fake news. Because if it is fake, it cannot be a news. And if it is news, it cannot be fake. But there are fake narratives. Declaring the emergency through radio, then getting it signed from the president late night, and then passing it in the cabinet next morning is not unconstitutional. But discussing CAA in the parliament and both the houses passing and giving citizenship to the people who are persecuted in neighboring countries is unconstitutional. In the digital space, it is the algorithms that are going to decide. During the election period, for example, I'll just give you an example that if you have subscribed to the YouTube channel of Organizer or Vikrama or Samvada, you will not get the news from those channels. You will get the news from the channels which YouTube has decided to push. Rajesh ji just spoke about Narada Jayanti, and many places, and especially in the southern parts, many media people actually ask me this question: why Narada? Whether he meant it or not, Rajesh ji also unconsciously said this, that it was in the north it was celebrated. The fact is, in 1826, when the first media publications started in any of the Indian languages, that time it was in Hindi and Bengali from Calcutta, called Utanda Martanda, the first publication, non-English publication, started in 1826. It was named as Utanda Martanda, and the cover page was dedicated to Narada. And Narada was called as the first media communicator of Indian tradition. And most of the publications that started after that in various languages, somewhere, sometime, they have dedicated their editions to Maharshi Narada. In 1955, when a committee was constituted under the chairmanship of stalwart of Indian history and culture, Kanaiyalal Maniklal Munshi, K.M. Munshi, who compiled 11 volumes on cultural history of India, there was a committee that was constituted which eventually proposed the Press Council of India in 1956. That committee also suggested Narada to be considered as the first journalist of India. Since then, 1956 onwards, many organizations, including Hindustan Samachar, actually started Narad Jayanti as the festival of media persons, media personalities, media-related issues, which almost continued till emergency. Only after 1990s, as Rajesh ji told, Vishwa Samvada Kendras were created, and RSS Prachar Vibhag actually took up some of the annual activities related to media. Then the idea of Narad Jayanti was revived. Now at various places, it is taking shape in various formats. Like for example, if you go to Rajasthan, you will not find a single RSS person on the dais. It is the Pink City Press Club, that is the Jaipur Press Club, who organizes it. And that is the original idea. An entire media fraternity of Rajasthan, irrespective of from which ideology they are coming, from which organization they are coming, which media house they are coming, they come together and celebrate the Narad Jayanti. That is the original idea, that media persons should come together, should discuss, celebrate excellence among them, but more importantly, discuss and deliberate about the issues they are facing in the media world. Now, what was the logic behind thinking about Narada? There can be many symbols and there can be diverse of opinions. Somebody can say, perhaps Sanjaya was the first communicator because he actually narrated the story, what was happening on Kurukshetra. But Narada, as I understand, and as K. Munshi actually tried to project, was not a person. Of course, Maharshi Narada, who is considered as the, child of Brahma and who played a critical role in various parts of writing scriptures, was a person. But eventually, what we find when Ramayana is to be written and Valya is to become Valmiki, or Vyasa has to compile entire Mahabharata, or when Vyasa was suggested to take help of Ganesha, at every occasion, if one personality that is constant institutionally, that is Narada. So Narada is not just a person, it is an institution that communicates. Now, what are the basic principles that Narada stands for? And then I'll come to the present day media situation. Narada as an institution can be understood through his Bhakti Sutras, 56 principles that Narada has given. And it has nothing to do with north or south. They are celebrated everywhere. But three I will focus on. The first principle that he stood for working in any profession, you need to have a commitment, a bhakti towards it. You cannot do it just because as you came to know from my introduction, I'm not a trained journalist. I'm basically a political science teacher. But I didn't realize when media or communicating stories about people, about democracy became my passion. It was an incident that actually changed my life when I was reporting from interior parts of Maharashtra during 1996 Lok Sabha elections, and I visited a place in the interior part of Gadchiroli, which was and still is highly Maoist infested area, very backward. That time there was no connectivity. From Nagpur you had to reach to Chandrapur, then Razura, then Gadchiroli. From there you have to take a bus which would reach there, in the morning, and the same bus will come back in the evening after 5 o'clock. From there to reach to the polling station, I had to either hire a bicycle or ride a bullock cart. And then at that time I was just a fresh graduate doing my master's. And I visited a place thrice. It's a small locality. It was called as near Razura is the Tehsil, but that particular place was called as Sonpura. Very isolated hamlet. From there you can actually see the hills, then Andhra, now Telangana border, and you could see the Naxalites or Maoist camps from there. There I visited a place. There was a voter in my list. I had to identify her. She was a young lady. And first time I went, an old lady came. I interacted with her. She said, "No, it's not me, it's my daughter." Then her daughter came out. So we had to visit the same place thrice. Pre-poll, exit poll, post-poll. So I visited this thrice. 2 times it happened that first time I met the mother, then she sent the daughter. 3rd time when I went, she said, "Yes, I voted and I have firm belief in democracy. It was my first time I did my voting. I hope the things will change because of this." Though in 1996 she told me that she wanted Indira Gandhi to be Prime Minister, though Indira Gandhi was no more. 12 years back she was assassinated. But after that, what happened actually changed my life. When I asked her before leaving, I don't know whether I'll come again to this place or not. So I just want to say namaste, namaskara to your mother. So if she is around then. So initially she was reluctant. When I insisted, she said, I thought, I misbehaved something, or she started crying, and I asked her, "Sorry, but if I just wanted to say namaste to her, nothing else." She said, "Sorry brother, nothing like that. Perhaps, you didn't observe one thing. You came here thrice. Only one of us came out because we have one sari to wear and only one of us can come out at a time." And it was, a person who is studying in Pune University, who is qualified to join JNU and having so much of knowledge about political science and democracy, and getting this reality, a person who does not have a wear proper clothing is showing commitment towards democracy, hope towards democracy. And I wrote a small piece in Marathi. That time in Nagpur, I came back and I just wrote that piece that night. It was published next day. I went back to Pune. I completed my master's. I came to JNU. And suddenly one day, that editor called me and he said, where are you? You should come back to Nagpur. I said, why? He said, after your story, there are so many letters we are getting and people are asking what we can do for those ladies. I said, fine. Because I didn't say that it is failure of democracy. I didn't say that, it is our... I said, these are the people who are the real protectors of democracy, who have faith in our system. What we are doing as educated, middle class, tax-paying individuals who say, oh, it's a holiday. And I should say this in Bangalore, considering the voting patterns, voting percentages. Narada Sutra actually talks about showing that commitment on the ground. You cannot file a story sitting on a table or Google searching. So Narada is always moving. Triloka, he is there on the spot. So first principle is commitment to the cause, commitment to your profession. But the second most important thing is you have to not just see, not just hear, but to experience the thing. Cross-verify the things. And then, through your movement, you gain the knowledge. You take the experience. I always say, Bharata is not a matter of shodha. Bharata is a matter of bodha. Research people can research Bharat on the basis of various publications, primary or secondary. But it is the journalists who realize Bharat because they go on the spot. Unfortunately, the rural and the tribal experiences are getting less and less day by day because we all have started considering ourselves Nagarika. And everybody is supposed to be only in Nagara. So from our consciousness, Grama and Vana is going away. We consider Nagara as the development. Our development parameters are completely destroyed. The balance that we were talking about, human life, incidentally, when Narada is talking about Triloka, he also talks about balance. So, Sura and Asura is also balance for him. He ensures Samudra Manthana. So there is a pattern in his communication. Many people have this, there are many distortions of Indian scriptures. And one of the greatest distortions that Britishers did and our films and television channels further perpetuated is the character of Narada. Narada is always believed to be the person who is inciting quarrels, who is inciting wars. The fact is, after gaining the knowledge from the ground, information from the ground, his job is very simple. He informs at the right place at the right time. And if it is for the establishment of dharma, many a times we have created a half-hearted understanding of our scriptures. So we know ahimsa paramo dharma. But we forget the next part of it. Dharmat hinsa tathaivacha. Ahimsa paramo dharma. The prime dharma is ahimsa. But for protection of dharma and ahimsa, if we have to do hinsa, that is also ahimsa. So he is promoting war only when the dharma is in danger. And that's why Krishna, while preaching Gita, invokes Narada as the person who has a knowledge of 56 disciplines. So a journalist is supposed to have a knowledge of something of everything. Then only you can talk about economics, you can talk about environment, you can talk about gender, you can talk about politics, you can talk about policies. So Narada is that personality which teaches us commitment, which teaches us ground reporting, which teaches us communication for the benefit of balance. Don't give information anywhere irresponsibly. At many a times we try to do in media fraternity for the sake of breaking news. It is communicating responsibly for the cause. What kind of effect do you want? What can be the possible repercussions of it? Take the recent example. A famous newspaper from Mumbai published a report that on the counting day, through a phone of a candidate's relative, EVM was hacked. And many, prominent YouTubers immediately, many political leaders picked it up. They just tweeted the news from that newspaper. What are you essentially doing? You are discrediting India's democratic system. You are questioning India's election commission. You are creating unrest and disbelief in India's entire constitutional democratic mechanism. In the name of what? Democracy and constitution. And the next day, the same newspaper, in somewhere in the corner, publishes a small 4-line regret saying that inadvertently, erroneously published. We regret. Now, who will take the responsibility of this when for 24 hours the message was percolated down in this age of social media that EVMs were hacked? On the counting day, EVMs were hacked with the phone, which are not at all connected to the phone, which are not at all connected to any of the internet or any of the network. With one OTP, it was hacked. So, when one lacks responsibility, lacks commitment, there is no problem in having ideology. I always say, if there is a person, if there is a publication, in fact, all media houses, media started, media as a concept came from medium. And what was the medium? Originally, it was all political parties who started their mouthpieces and they became medium. So, if somebody is saying that, we are independent and objective, they are actually perpetuating frauds. When you are clear that I represent certain ideology, you at least know from where it is coming. But the problems start when your publishing industry becomes an agenda for something else. I'll give you an example again. You must have experienced similar thing in Bangalore also on various issues. I'll give you an example from Delhi. In 2017, there was a small news that was published in prominent English newspaper based on a research published by some think tank in Europe that the milk products and the sweets that are prepared in India, especially of the brands like Mother Dairy, like you have various cooperative brands. Similar brand is there in Delhi called Mother Dairy. So these brands have a major business and outlets from Dashera, Vijayadashmi to Deepavali. And just before Vijayadashmi, just before Navaratri, this report was published. And there was a continuous follow-up on it, the same newspaper, and then it started with electronic media also, that Mother Dairy products are bad, Mother Dairy, the milk products are bad, it is very hazardous to consume. And suddenly, it was an uproar, many government agencies came into action, there were raids, not just Mother Dairy, other, sweet shops were also raided. And suddenly, in Delhi, 40% of sweets sale was dropped. 9 days of Navratri was over, Vijayadashmi was over, Deepavali was approaching, and suddenly on the front page of the same newspaper, there was a full page ad with Mr. Bachchan on it, Kuch Meetha Ho Jaye. Now when we started getting into it, we realized that the project which originally started in Europe to target India's sweets industry was actually funded by Cadbury. So the research was funded by Cadbury to target a particular brand into particular set of products, which was picked up by some media against that which got the advertisement, There is a sudden drop, and now every nook and corner of India, even on the occasions like Deepavali, typical Indian traditional festivals, the sweets, even the festivals of brothers and sisters like Bhai Dooj, now suddenly sisters started asking, Meri Cadbury kahan hai? Now this is a challenge. So there are threefold challenges. One, this challenge of manipulating media either through this fake narrative. I don't believe in this concept called fake news. Because if it is fake, it cannot be a news. And if it is news, it cannot be fake. But there are fake narratives. You build certain stories around half-baked truths to perpetuate certain perceptions in the mind of common people. So you start, believing, or you make others start believing, oh, Indian democracy is in danger. Suddenly in last 3-4 days, there is one narrative. There was nothing unconstitutional about emergency. First Tharoor started it, then yesterday Lalu Prasad Yadav wrote an article in Indian Express suddenly. There was nothing unconstitutional about emergency. It may be undemocratic but not unconstitutional. What is happening now is unconstitutional. So, invoking Article 352 of national emergency, which meant to use only during the war or internal disturbances or natural calamity to save a prime minister's chair because judiciary has given a judgment against her, is not unconstitutional. Amendment to the fundamental rights at 29 different positions to Article 42 when opposition is not there in the parliament is not unconstitutional. Amending the preamble of the constitution, again, without any discussion, is not unconstitutional. Declaring the emergency through radio, then getting it signed from the president late night, and then passing it in the cabinet next morning is not unconstitutional. But discussing CAA in the parliament and both the houses passing and giving citizenship to the people who are persecuted in neighboring countries is unconstitutional. That's why I said, it is the fake narratives, this is the fake narrative war that is going on. Secondly, till now what was happening, that it was mainly related to the electronic and print media. There is a new thing that has come that is called algorithm manipulation. In the digital space, it is the algorithms that are going to decide during the election period. For example, I'll just give you an example that if you have subscribed to the YouTube channel of Organizer or Vikrama or Samvada, you will not get the news from those channels. You will get the news from the channels which YouTube has decided to push. So even if you have not subscribed, you are forced to watch Dhruv Rathi. And there is a third part to it, which I indicated briefly, that it is not the editorial team or the editorial autonomy or the reporter on the ground that is deciding the news. The thin line that we used to have between the news and the views and opinion has completely blurred. Every news report is opinionated. So, you don't give a news about flood. While giving a flood or talking about flood also, you give an opinion into it while giving the headline. So, New York Times will certainly give the headline that the pro-Hindu government led by Modi, anti-Muslim CAA is passed. That was the headline. The simple story is that Indian Parliament has passed the Citizenship Amendment Act. But you give an opinionated headline to it. So even before reading the news, you have given the opinion. Now this is a serious challenge, and there are many forces who are playing behind it. Even this election was not between two political alliances. This election was between two kinds of forces globally. There are three constructs which are fighting about idea of Bharat. The first one, that created by the British, perpetuated by the Nehruvian Congress, that India is a nation in the making. Actually, what Pandit Nehru, when he said on the midnight of 14th and 15th August, was we want to create a new state. But he said we want to make a new nation. Then there is a second force. I come from JNU, and JNU actually represented that thought process, that India was never a nation and India can never be a nation. India is a conglomeration of many nationalities. So Tukde Tukde is not a sudden thing. From 1920s, there is an ideological force behind it. But there is a third thought which believes that India has been a national consciousness from Himalayas to Hind Mahasagar. There are common certain identities, certain customs, certain beliefs, certain worldview, who see the things commonly. Like for example, if you are celebrating Ugadi and I celebrate Varsha Pratipada, or somebody is celebrating Bihu, and you ask a person, may not be studying in Bangalore, but maybe from some rural part of Karnataka, why do you celebrate this? And you ask the similar question across the border in Maharashtra, from a rural part, you will get the same answer. That this is we believe that this was the day when Brahma created this Srishti, but more importantly, this is our new agricultural cycle. One cycle has ended and new has started. Vasanta Rutu has started. So it is a new beginning of nature. So we celebrate that, creation of nature. The same answer you will get if you ask about Vishu in Malayalam or Baisakhi in Punjab. But illiterate person, not English educated person. Because English educated person said we don't want this much complexity, 1st January is fine. That is Bharatiya worldview. Unfortunately, in media fraternity, because of the academic background and the kind of training we get, we have also lost touch with it. And we also play around this, subtleties and identities which are much more forced on us by the colonial constructs. Means I simply fail to understand if during Bhakti movement the Marathi and Kannada sons could converse with each other and translate each other's poems so easily, and both the sides could sing those poems both in Kannada and Marathi. What suddenly happened after independence that Marathi and Kannada borders became such a sensitive issue? Because for us, linguistic was never an identity, it was a European construct. But suddenly after 1940s, when Congress accepted first time that language should be the unit of Congress state organization, suddenly linguistic identities. Now, speaking against it, actually politically incorrect. But you see the old Madras province, and one beautiful, one example, then I'll stop. I got one document from Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, orders, Ajna Patra used to be called. After his coronation, he passed an order at the peak of his, kingdom. It was from north of Pune to Tanjavur. So there were many people who were speaking Marathi, the rural Marathi, then Prakrit Marathi, the Sanskrit Marathi, then Kannada, then Tulu, Tamil. So he passed an order stating that every order I am giving from Raigad should be translated in the local language. And so it is your responsibility that every 20 miles, one interpreter and translator should be appointed who will explain my orders to the local community, because understanding the laws in local language was the only role of the state and not creating language-based identity. It was first time in 1919 British introduced this idea that language should be the basis of units. In 1940, Congress accepted it. 1946, it became a reality. And suddenly, for thousands of years, these many languages, the beauty of idea of Bharat is not diversity of cultures, but celebrating unique culture that celebrates diversity. So for us, languages of communication can be many, but the thought process behind them is the same, was the idea of Bharat. In media now, it is our responsibility when there are many forces who are aligning to create divisions on various lines, whether languages, whether north versus south. Dakshinapatha and Uttarapatha was always there. Dravida was always there, but it was always associated with the direction and not the identity. So now it is our responsibility, because the role of media is commitment to the cause, your profession, going to the ground, realizing the reality, and communicating a right story to the right person for restoring balance. Lokahita and lokamata, these two things are important, then only true journalism would survive. Otherwise, journalism would come under scanner. Journalism as a profession would be under danger, and anybody and everybody who is a YouTuber, have access to something, would call himself or herself a YouTuber or journalist and start giving gyan on something. So that commitment to profession, having certain skill set and having sense of responsibility about your communication, I believe the people who are being felicitated today and giving BSK is giving them prashasti have played this role of responsible journalism for restoring balance, and that's why they are going to be felicitated today. I congratulate them in advance, and I believe that we will nurture this tradition with various media institutions, academic institutions, even media houses, that such values are to be created, that for which Narada stood for. And that's why celebrating Narada Jayanti is celebrating our profession. Let us celebrate together, enjoy it together, and nurture the values for future generation. This is my simple call. Thank you. Thank you very much for me.